What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. Today, I'll be taking a first look at the 2026 Daytona 500 entrants. I'm going to talk about the confirmed rides for the Daytona 500 and talk about some of the rumor rides as well around the Daytona 500. So anyways, let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. We're going to start by talking about the one car for Trackhouse Racing. This one once going to be driven by Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain will be looking for a second crown jewel event in his NASCAR Cup Series career, as of course he picked up the Coca-Cola 600 win in 2025. He'll also be looking for his first ever Daytona 500 victory as well. He will have a new crew chief in 2026, with Brandon McSwain being the crew chief for this year. Ross will be looking to get it done and will look to pick up his first Daytona 500 victory in 2026. Up next, how about the two car for Team Penske? This will once again be driven by Austin Cindric. Austin Cindric will be looking for a second Daytona 500 victory in 2026, as of course he won the Daytona 500 in his rookie season back in 2022. Cindric will be looking to have a much better season also in the 2026 year after a much up and down year in 2025. He looks to have a much better year and looks to have a strong season and looks to win his second Daytona 500 this upcoming season. Up next, how about the three car for Richard Childress Racing? This one's going to be driven by Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon will be looking to win his second Daytona 500 in 2026, as of course he won the Daytona 500 in controversial fashion after dumping Eric Almirola on the last lap of the event 8 years ago. He'll look to win his second Daytona 500 and also look to win, I believe, his third race at Daytona and Cup, as of course he won the summer race back in 2022. Austin Dillon's a pretty solid super speedway racer. He'll have a solid chance and opportunity to get his first super speedway win since 2022. Up next, how about the four car for Front Row Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Noah Gragson. Noah Gragson's coming off of having not a great season in 2025, but Noah Gragson does have some wins previously at Daytona in the O'Reilly Series back, I believe, in 2019 or 2020. He has shown some good stuff in the past at Daytona, has had some really good runs, even running good in the Cup Series for teams like Stewart-Haas Racing and Front Row as well. He'll look for a good run and look to have a strong performance with Front Row in this year's Daytona 500. Up next, how about the five car for Hendrick Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson is looking to complete the crown jewels. He, of course, won the Brickyard 400 back in 2024, won the Coke 600 back in 2021, and also has a Southern 500 win from 2023. He has gotten better at super speedways, and he's done better at these types of tracks over the last couple years. I think he's one of the front runners to potentially get that Daytona 500 win. He'll look to finally get that Daytona 500 victory in 2026. Up next, how about the sixth car for RFK Racing? This will once again be driven by Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski is a fantastic super speedway racer, but this is the one race he has not won at super speedways, whether it's Daytona or Talladega. But he's come close to winning the Daytona 500 in the past. Brad is also getting close to the end of his career, so we don't know how much longer Brad is going to have the chance and opportunity to win more Daytona 500s. I think Brad will have probably a fast car, will have a solid chance and opportunity. He looks to win his first Daytona 500 in 2026. Up next, how about the 7 car for Spire Motorsports? There will be a new driver behind the wheel of the number 7 car in the 2026 season, as Dion Swartz moves away from Trackhouse Racing, where he drove the 99 car in 2025, and drives the 7 car in 2026. His crew chief has still not been officially announced for the upcoming season, but Swartz, of course, has a super speedway win at Atlanta Motor Speedway back in 2024. Swartz also has been decent in super speedways at the other types of tracks like Daytona and Talladega in the past, so he looks to win his first Daytona 500, looks to get it done, and I think he has a decent chance with the Spire Group in 2026. Up next, how about the 8 car for Richard Childress Racing? This will once again be driven by Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch only needs to win the Daytona 500 to complete his career in the sport, but he is coming into this year's Daytona 500 with a very long winless streak going back to 2023 at Gateway. But he's won his super speedways most recently and nearly won at Daytona in the summer of 2024. I think Kyle Busch is going to have a good chance and opportunity to win the Daytona 500. He's one of the favorites, in my opinion, going into the 500 for 2026. This could be the last time he's driving for RCR, though. He'll look to run really good in the Daytona 500 in the 2026 NASCAR Cup Series season. Up next, how about the 9 car for Hendrick Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott is looking for his first Daytona 500 win in his career, and is also looking for his first crown jewel win as well, as he never won the Daytona 500, the Brickyard 400, Southern 500, or the Coca-Cola 600. Though he's come close to winning Daytona 500, I believe finishing the runner position back in 2021. Elliott will look to get it done this year. I think he's going to have a fast enough car to be a factor, and I think Hendrick will show some really good speed, where Chase can have the chance and opportunity to win the Daytona 500 in 2026. Up next, how about the 10 car for Kaulig Racing? There's been no official confirmation on who the driver is going to be for this car. It's been expected that Ty Dillon was going to sign a contract extension with the 10, but with no longer Kaulig having to support with ECR going into next season, I think it's possible we may not see Ty Dillon behind the wheel. If Ty Dillon doesn't drive this car, I think Justin Neely is going to be the driver. Justin Neely is joining Kaulig Racing, its Ram program in the Truck Series in 2026, so I think it's very possible you're going to see Justin Neely drive, but I also think Ty Dillon could be behind the wheel of this car in 26. Up next, how about the 11 car for Joe Gibbs Racing? This will once again be driven by Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin will be looking to become only the third driver in NASCAR Cup history to have 4 Daytona 500 wins. Cale Yarborough had 4 Daytona 500 victories, and Richard Petty scored 7 Daytona 500 wins. Denny Hamlin's had a lot of stuff on his plate, but we know he's a really good super speed racer, but at times has struggled in the next-gen era. I think Denny will have a good chance and opportunity. He had a very good shot to win the Daytona 500 in 2025. Looks to get his 4th Daytona 500 victory. I think he'll have a good shot to do it for sure in 2026. Up next, how about the 12 car for Team Penske? This will once again be driven by Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney is currently my pick to win the 2026 Daytona 500 because Ryan Blaney has been really good at super speedways. He won the most recent race at Daytona, has won at Talladega quite a bit as well. He's already won the crown jewel at the Coke 600, looking for a second crown jewel victory. I think he'll have a good chance and opportunity to be a factor, and I think he will be a strong contender to finally get that Daytona 500 this year. Up next, up at the 13 car for Kaulig Racing. Yes, I think there is a potential possibility that Kaulig Racing could field a third part-time entry for the Daytona 500 in 2026. If they do show up with this, I think drivers like Daniel Dye, Brendan Butterbean Queen, maybe like Casey Kane could get behind the wheel of the car for the Daytona 500, but I think there's a solid chance and possibility that you will see the number 13 show up for the Daytona 500 in 2026. Up next, up at the 15 car for Rick Ware Racing. I think Rick Ware Racing is going to field a second car for this year's Daytona 500, the upcoming one, and I think the driver is likely going to be Corey LaJoie. Corey LaJoie is driven for Rick Ware Racing in 2024 near the end of the year and ran a lot of races with the team in 2025. I think he is going to be a driver for the team in 2026. I could see a guy like David Reagan getting behind the wheel, but I think at this moment, I think Corey LaJoie will be the driver if they show up with another car in 26. Up next, up the 16 car for Kaulig Racing. This one wants to be driven by AJ Allmendinger in 2026. AJ's been alright at super speedways and has at times come close to winning Daytona 500, but has also not had the best runs in the Daytona 500 past, as I think he had an engine failure in the 2025 Daytona 500. He'll be looking to get Kaulig Racing their first win at a super speedway, at least in the Cup Series. He'll look to have a chance and opportunity to do it for sure, as AJ looks to win his first Daytona 500 in 26. Up next, up the 17 car for RFK Racing. This will once again be driven by Chris Buescher. Chris Buescher is looking for his first Daytona 500 in 2026, but he does have a win previously at Daytona back in 2023 in the summer. I think Buescher is going to have a good chance and opportunity. The RFK racing cars always show it with really good pace and really, really good speed, and I think it's very possible they'll have a good opportunity if RFK can bring that good speed, as that team showed some really good stuff at the end of the year. I think it'll be a good run for Buescher in 2026. Up next on the 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This will once again be driven by Chase Briscoe. Chase Briscoe is coming off having a really good season in 2025 as Chase Briscoe ended up picking up 3 wins and making the championship 4. Briscoe also won the pole for the Daytona 500 in 2025 and looks to win his second straight pole as well. Briscoe came close also winning the Daytona 500 in 2025 and looks to win his first Daytona 500 in 2026, which I think will have a good chance and opportunity to get his third ever crown jewel victory, as he does has 2 Southern 500 wins. Up next, up at the 20 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This will once again be driven by Christopher Bell. Now, Christopher Bell's not had the best runs in the Daytona 500 in the past, but he does have a super speedway win at Atlanta back in 2025. Bell, I think, will have an outside chance if things can go in his favor. He's won the dual races before, and things can be sometimes lucky, but there's also been unlucky things that have happened to Christopher Bell. We'll see if he can be a factor in the Daytona 500 this upcoming season. Up next, up at the 21 car for the Wood Brothers. This will once again be driven by Josh Berry. Josh Berry is looking to win his first Daytona 500 in 2026, which Josh Berry will be driving a Team Penske etiquette car, which we know the Penske cars are really good at super speedways. If he doesn't get caught up in a crash and incident, I think Berry can be a factor with the speed that they're going to show. He looks to win his first Daytona 500. I think he's got a solid shot to do it this upcoming year. Up next up, the 22 car for Team Penske. This will once again be driven by Joey Logano. Joey Logano will be looking to win his first Daytona 500 since 2015, which was 11 years ago. Logano's been all right at super speedways in recent years, but also has had the finishes to show for of only winning Atlanta races in the next-gen era at super speedway style tracks. Logano looks to win his second Daytona 500. I think the 22 car will have some good speed, have a shot to get it done. Up next up with the 23 car for 2311 Racing. This will once again be driven by Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace is looking to pick up a second crown jewel victory of his NASCAR Cup career, as of course he won the Brickyard 400 in 2025. Bubba Wallace has been getting better as time has gone on, came very close to winning the Daytona 500 in 2022. Now things could be affected by the loss depending on what decisions are made there, but Bubba will still be behind the wheel in 2026. He'll be in a contract year, but looks to have a good opportunity to finally win the Daytona 500 in the upcoming season. Up next up, the 24 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This will once again be driven by William Byron. William Byron is looking to make history. He is trying to become the first driver in NASCAR Cup history to win 3 straight Daytona 500s, as he won in 2024 and 2025. William Byron, of course, is looking for another Daytona 500, also looking for his first Cup Series championship. If the Hendrick cars can bring good speed, I think Byron will be a factor. I think he's going to have a good opportunity to do it for sure. I expect this 24 car to be up front, and Byron look to continue his strong runs at super speedways in this year's upcoming Daytona 500. Up next up, the 26 car for Sam Hunt Racing. There has been some rumors out there about Sam Hunt Racing potentially fielding a car in the Daytona 500, but nothing's been officially confirmed at this point. If they do enter the Daytona 500 in 2026, I think Harrison Burton is likely going to be the driver. Harrison's a good super speedway racer, and Harrison Burton is, of course, going to be with Sam Hunt Racing in the 24 machine in the O'Reilly Series. If they show up, I think Harrison Burton is likely to be the candidate to be behind the wheel of that car in the 500. Up next up, the 33 car for Richard Childress Racing. Yes, I think RCR actually will field the third car for the Daytona 500 in 2026. I think the driver is going to be Austin Hill. Austin Hill's won a ton of super speed races in the O'Reilly Series at Daytona, Talladega, and also Atlanta as well. He's one of the best in O'Reilly Series history, and I think he'll be a factor if he does run the Daytona 500. I think he likely will be in the 500 for sure in 2026 with Richard Childress Racing. Up next up, the 34 car for Front Row Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Todd Gillen. Todd Gillen came very close to winning at Daytona, I believe, in 2023 and 2024 as well, and has had some good runs at super speedways, including a great run at Talladega, where I think he had a runner-up finish in the fall race. I think Todd Gillen is going to be an outside factor. The front row cars have also qualified really well in the past with drivers like Michael McDowell and Todd. I think it's going to be a good run for Todd. I think we'll have a good opportunity to get that first Daytona 500 and first career Cup win in the 500 this year. Up next up at a 35 car for 2311 Racing. This one once again be driven by Riley Herbst. Riley Herbst is looking for a much better season in 2026, as he had one of the worst rookie seasons we have seen in NASCAR Cup history, and will have a lot of pressure for him, as I think he'll be in a contract year with 2311 Racing going into 2026. He's looking for a bounce back year. He, of course, has been decent in super speedways in the past, finishing the top 20 in the Daytona 500 in 2025. He'll look to do much better and run much better in the Daytona 500 with 2311 Racing in the 2026 year. Up next up at a 36 car for Front Row Motorsports. I think Front Row is potentially going to field a fourth car in this year's Daytona 500, the upcoming 500, and I think the most likely driver is going to be none other than Chandler Smith. Chandler Smith attempted to make the Daytona 500 with MBM, also known as Garage 66 and 25, unfortunately failed to make the 500, but Chandler Smith is an alright super speedway racer, plus he'll be back with Front Row trucks next year, so I think they will show up with him in the 500 in 26. Up next up at a 38 car for Front Row Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Zane Smith. Zane Smith, of course, won a couple Truck Series races at Daytona in 2022 and 2023. And Zane Smith also had some good runs in the Daytona 500 in the past as well. He'll look to win his first Daytona 500, also his first career NASCAR Cup Series win. I think it could be a good opportunity for him to run really strong. I think Front Row is going to bring some good speed. Also won the pole Talladega in the spring of 25. I think we'll have a good opportunity to win the 500 in 2026. Up next up with the 40 car for Junior Motorsports. They will be back in this year's Daytona 500 in 2026 with Justin Allgaier being the driver. They will have to make their way in and qualifying, but I think Allgaier could be a factor. He had a top 10 car, finishing the top 10 in the Daytona 500 in 2025, and this team looks to do it once again in 2026 and looks in their second start to win a NASCAR Cup Series event with Justin Allgaier. This team, I think, will have a good opportunity. I think there'll be factors to win the Daytona 500 or make the 500 in 2026. Up next up with the 41 car for the Haas factory team. This one once going to be driven by Cole Custer. Cole Custer has come very close to winning the last 2 races at Daytona, was in position to win the 525, and also almost won the summer Daytona race as well, was part of the good finish at that track. I think Cole Custer could be an outside factor. He's been decent in super speedways in the next-gen era, has shown some good stuff in the last couple of years, and I think Custer could be definitely a factor to be up front and could be a sleeper to win the 500 this year. His consistency's been pretty good. I think we'll have an outside chance for sure to be a factor. Up next up with the 42 car for Legacy Motor Club. This one's going to be driven by John Hunter Nemechek. John Hunter Nemechek is coming off of having maybe his best season of his Cup Series career, and he's actually a sleeper at super speedways. His numbers at these tracks have not been too bad. He has shown some pretty good consistency at these types of tracks before. Has won, I believe, at Daytona or Atlanta before on super speedways. I think Nemechek will be one to watch out for and could be a sleeper for sure this year. Up next up with the 43 car for Legacy Motor Club. This one once going to be driven by Eric Jones. Eric Jones is looking for his first Daytona 500 victory, but looking for a second Daytona victory in Cup, as he does have a win from the summer race in 2018. And Legacy's been getting faster and stronger, and Jones has shown some good finishes in the past and nearly won, I think, at Talladega in 2022. I think he'll be an outside factor for the 500 this season. Up next up with the 44 car for NY Racing. I expect NY Racing to show up at the Daytona 500 in 2026, and I think the driver is going to be JJ Yeley. JJ Yeley drove for this team at a lot of races in 2025, and I do expect this program to be back in 2026. Multiple people have said they're likely going to return. I think you'll see JJ Yeley in the Daytona 500, and I think you'll see NY Racing once again back on the racetrack in 2026. Up next up with the 45 car for 2311 Racing. This one once going to be driven by Tyler Reddick. I believe in the 2025 Daytona 500, Tyler Reddick scored a top 5 finish. But Reddick's been very hit or miss at super speedways at these times, and I think it's going to be interesting to see if Reddick can have a good run. He is looking for his first crown jewel victory of his NASCAR Cup Series career up to this point. Looking to get his first win, I believe, since Michigan or Homestead of 24. Looks to get it done. I think we'll have a good opportunity with this team in 26. Up next up with the 47 car for Hayek Motorsports. This one once going to be driven by Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is looking for his second Daytona 500 victory, as he won it back in 2023. Stenhouse is looking to have a better season, as his team is very inconsistent throughout the 2025 year. Looking for a much better season. I think Stenhouse will have a good opportunity, and I think he'll have a good chance to get another super speedway win, as he looks to win his third win at Daytona and get it done in 2026. Up next up with the 48 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This one once going to be driven by Alex Bowman. Alex Bowman is looking for his first Daytona 500 victory and his first win at a super speedway track. Bowman also will be in a contract year with Hendrick Motorsports, as he is only signed currently through 2026. Bowman is looking for that victory. I think Bowman will be a factor and contender. I think he'll show some good stuff. And I think Bowman could get that first Daytona 500 victory. He looks to get it done in 2026. Up next up with the 50 car for Team Amerivent Racing. This team did run the Clash in 2025. It ran a few other races with drivers like Burt Myers. I think they're going to show up at the Daytona 500 in 2026. Most likely a guy like Jeff Earnhardt, or maybe a guy like Matt DiBenedetto if Matt DiBenedetto gets the race. But I think this team is going to show up on the racetrack and select races. And I think they'll be in the 500. They were supposed to run the 500 in 2025. I think they will show up and run the 500 like they did with Connor Daly back in 22. I think they show up this upcoming season. Up next up at the 51 car for Rick Ware Racing. This expected once again be driven by Cody Ware. Cody Ware's actually had some alright finishes at Daytona and Talladega before, and the Rick Ware cars have been decent with the RFK equipment that they have. I think that Cody Ware could be an outside factor for a top 15 or top 20, and could be an outside factor for a top 10, but they will once again be back at the 500 this year. Up next, I have the 54 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This will once again be driven by Ty Gibbs. What surprises me is Ty Gibbs actually has had some decent finishes at super speedways, but despite that, he is still looking for his first career NASCAR Cup Series win. It'd be a big deal for Ty if he can go out there and get his first win in the Daytona 500. If he doesn't get caught up in a crash or incident, I could see Ty Gibbs being a factor to win. Still unknown what the official crew chief is going to be for Ty Gibbs for next season, but as of now, I expect Ty Gibbs to have the same crew chief, but he will look to win his first Daytona 500 in 2026. Up next, up at the 56 car for Tricon Garage. Tricon is a team that I would not be shocked or surprised if they do enter a car in the 500 again. They ran it with Martin Truex Jr. in 2025, and I could see him running it with Martin Truex Jr. again in 26. But I'll throw some other names out there. A guy like Gio Ruggiero could also be a factor to drive for this team. Gio is, of course, going to be back with Tricon in the Truck Series in 26. And I'll throw Caden Honeycutt, who's expected to run with this team in trucks next year, also out as a potential candidate. And I could see some other drivers in a Toyota program like a Brent Cruz. Brent Cruz actually won't be eligible to run, but I think there'll be a few drivers who get the chance to run the 500 with this team if they do show up. Up next, up at the 60 car for RFK Racing. This will once again be driven by Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece had a dream season in the Cup Series. While he did not win a race in 2025, he had his best season of his Cup Series career with RFK. And we know RFK has been really good at Daytona in the past. They're looking for their first Daytona 500 in many years, I'm pretty sure. I think Ryan Preece will absolutely be a factor if he doesn't get caught up in a flip or something like that like he did in 25. It was a solid year for him. He'll look to do it in the 2026 year and have a strong season. RFK and look to get his first career Cup Series win throughout the year. Up next up is the 62 car for Beer Motorsports. I do expect Beer Motorsports to be at the Daytona 500 in 2026. The driver I think it will be Anthony Alfredo. Alfredo's ran the Daytona 500 with this program, I'm pretty sure, and also driven a lot of races at Beer Motorsports the last couple of years since Noah Gragson and Austin Hill were no longer the drivers for this team. I think Alfredo gets the opportunity. I think his team shows up, and I think they'll be running some races for sure in 2026. Up next up the 66 car for Garage 66. I do expect this team to enter the Daytona 500 in the 2026 season, and I think it comes down to two drivers for this ride, Casey Mears and Timmy Hill. Casey Mears ran for the team at Daytona in 2025 and actually looked okay on the track, and Casey Mears did improve as the year progressed, but Timmy Hill also has been the star driver for this program. I would not expect a driver like Mike Wallace, by the way, to show up after what happened in 2025 at Daytona, but if they show up, I think it will likely be a guy like Casey Mears or Timmy Hill behind the wheel. Up next up is the 6-7 car for 2311 Racing. I think it's possible that 2311 Racing could field a fourth car for the Daytona 500 2026 for Corey Heim. Corey Heim, of course, we don't know what his official plans are right now for 2026. He probably should be full-time in the 35 car at this point right now, but I digress. But I think that you're going to see this team fill the fourth car for Heim. I think Heim is a really talented race car driver who I think is going to be really good with this team down the road. Will eventually end up being full-time with 2311. I think if they show up, they will fill the car for Corey Heim. Up next on the 71 car for Spire Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Michael McDowell. Michael McDowell is looking for his second Daytona 500 victory in 2026 as he won it in 2021. McDowell's a pretty good super speedway racer, has come close to winning other super speedways over the last couple of years, and Michael McDowell is someone you can always count on being a factor, whether it's with Spire, Front Row, doesn't matter the organization. He's going to be a guy they're going to have to watch out for through the events. I think he'll be a factor, and I think he and Travis Mack will work really well together and show his crew chief that he's had. I think he'll have a good chance to show some good stuff in 2026. Up next up to 77 car for Spire Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Carson Hocevar. Carson Hocevar is coming off of having a pretty good season in 2025, though he did get into some trouble throughout the season. But you cannot deny this guy is really talented. He always runs up front at every type of track we go to. He almost won Atlanta in 2025, which is a super speedway. I think he'll be a factor for sure. I think the 77 team is going to show some good speed. Him and Luke Lambert had a really good working relationship. I think he's got a good opportunity to be a factor and be a guy to watch out for in the 500 in 2026 with the Spire Motorsports team and organization. Up next, I'm in the 78 car for Live Fast Motorsports. This team has not officially announced what they're planning to do, but I do expect Live Fast to run every super speedway race. There was a rumor out there about Catherine Lake being a potential candidate for this seat, but I do think BJ McLeod will be the driver. BJ always runs the super speedways. It makes the most sense at this point. He's had some decent runs of super speedways before, works really hard, gets a good engine. I think he'll be a factor. I think he'll be back in this car in the 26 Daytona 500. Up next up at the 84 car for Legacy Motor Club. While nothing's been officially announced for Legacy's third car, I do expect that Jimmy Johnson will be running the 500 in 2026. Jimmy's already confirmed he's going to run San Diego. There's rumors he could be running a couple Truck Series races next year as well, including San Diego. And I do think Jimmy's going to run the Daytona 500. Jimmy's been running the 500 the last couple years. In fact, finishing the top 3 in the Daytona 500 2025. He'll look to get another opportunity to get that third Daytona 500 victory. I do expect Johnson to show up this upcoming season. Up next up at the 88 car for Trackhouse Racing. There's a new driver in the 88 car 2026 as Connor Zolch moves up full-time to the NASCAR Cup Series. He'll have Red Bull as a sponsor on the car for the event, and he'll have Randall Burnett, who was a crew chief for Kyle Busch the last couple years, as a crew chief in 2026. There's a lot of anticipation for Connor Zolch. He technically actually won the most race in O'Reilly Auto Parts race at Daytona, though Park Clearman was a driver behind the wheel. But I do think Connor Zolch will be fun to watch. Not sure how Connor is going to be in the 500, but he's going to be a fun rookie to watch in the Cup Series. We'll see how things go, but it's a really exciting opportunity as Connor looks to win in his first full-time start, looks to get it done with Trackhouse this year. Up next up with the 91 car for Trackhouse Racing, aka the Project 91 car. I think they're going to be back. You're going to be seeing Project 91 in 2026, and I think Scott McLaughlin is going to be the driver. Scott McLaughlin's been open to running some races in NASCAR before, plus he actually drove for Trackhouse in the Rolex 24 in 2025, and I think you see him being the driver if they show up. It won't be Elliot Castroneves, but I think if you do see this team show up, I think it'll be Scott McLaughlin. They said they're planning to do some stuff for this upcoming year. I think you see the Project 91 car come back. I think Scott McLaughlin ends up being the driver for that team. Up next up the 97 car for Trackhouse Racing. This will be driven by Shane Van Gisbergen, who moves away from the number 88 number and goes back to his traditional number 97 car in 2026. He's the only one that is not changing crew chiefs. We also don't know what the sponsor is going to be, but he is looking to get his first Daytona 500 victory. Shane Van Gisbergen had a really solid rookie season in 2025 and looks to improve on that in the Cup Series in 2026. Looks to get his first all-world win, looks to win his first Super Speedway race, looks to win his first Daytona 500. He had a bad finish in the 500, went and finished multiple laps down in the 500 2025. Looks to improve and win his first Daytona 500 this upcoming season. And finally, let's talk about the 99 car for RFK Racing. I think RFK could have a fourth car in the 500 in 2026. There's been outside rumors about that potentially happening. I think that you could see a driver like David Reagan get behind it. It will make the most sense. David Reagan came very close to win the Daytona 500 multiple different times. There's a wild rumor from the Daily Downfords about Max Verstappen, but I don't believe that rumor at this point because of the Ford switch for a Red Bull. I think also Cam Waters could be a potential can as well with the Ford connection, but who knows at this point. But I think he may see the 99 car in the 500 and a return for the number 99 potentially down the road at the 500 for potentially 2026. So, that is going to be it for the early look video for the 2026 Daytona 500 entry list. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Notifications on so if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me to Facebook and Instagram and support me on Patreon as well. Let's go below that and comment your thoughts below on today's video. What are your thoughts about the early look on the entry list? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me who you think will also win the 500 for the upcoming year. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And we'll do more of these entries as we get closer to the Daytona 500. Tomorrow we're going to be doing a video talking about Kyle Busch, and we're also probably going to have a news video kind of talking about the lawsuit. There should be a full-scale news video dropping either Tuesday or Wednesday with everything that's happened over the last week or so after Thanksgiving, among other things, and coverage of the lawsuit between 2011 Front Row Motorsports. If there's any major news that breaks throughout the week, we'll discuss it live on the channel. We got content coming up, people like Haley Deegan, Shane Van Gisbergen, Carl Roberts, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Bo Wallace, Ross Chastain, Sheldon Creed, Sam Mayer, Frankie Muniz, other stuff like Tony Stewart, Case Game, Robbie Gordon, Clayton Safar, and Dodge Ram, among other things we'll talk about on the channel in the coming days and coming weeks as well. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode. I'll see you guys next time for more great awesome NASCAR content, motorsports content. I'll let Eric Omro as well. Take care, everybody.